Storms and hurricanes are some of the most awe-inspiring natural events on the planet. Lashing rains and gale-force winds can wreak havoc across any landscape, occasionally becoming powerful enough to level cities, rip up forests, and even unearth secrets from a time long forgotten. But there are some secrets that were meant to be left buried, like the one uncovered in Ireland back in 2015. Ireland is a land known for its rich ancient culture and vibrant history, with the first hunter-gatherers making the island home around 8000 BC. The Irish Celtic culture that emerged was responsible for some of the world's most beautiful poetry, crafts, and artwork, with massive ancient treasure hoards and gold stashes still being discovered by archaeologists to this day. But in 2015, it wasn't beautiful art or priceless treasure that was unearthed after a vicious winter storm. Outside the town of Collooney, part of the county of Sligo, 60-mile-per-hour windstorms had ravaged the landscape and caused chaos for all the residents. Sadly, after the storm passed, one of the country's legendary beech trees was found uprooted in a field. Thought to be about 215 years old, even the giant winding roots of this tree weren't enough to protect it from the temper tantrum Mother Nature threw that day. As locals prepared to have the tree removed, they spotted something tangled in the roots that made them stop dead. A human spine topped with a broken skull. And that wasn't all. A quick glimpse down into the gaping hole torn into the field when the tree was uprooted revealed the bottom half of the skeleton, severed at the femurs, buried in the dirt. This haunting discovery required analysis from the experts.
Well, that wasn't such a chore now, was it?
No, not Ghostbusters. Bone dusters. Or archaeologists, to give them their professional name. Closer inspection by Sligo Leitrim Archaeological Service revealed that it was the frame of a young man who was somewhere between the age of 17 and 25. Despite being so young, deep marks on his rib and wrist bones suggested he'd met a violent end in combat by some kind of sword or knife, making this an ancient murder scene. But that raised more questions. Who planted the tree over his body? Could it have been planted in commemoration, or even to hide the evidence? Dr. Marion Dowd, the lead archaeologist on the case, reported that radiocarbon dating placed the origins of the skeleton somewhere around 1030 AD. That would make this young man almost 1,000 years old, far outdating the placement of the tree he'd been hidden by and scrapping theories it had been planted in commemoration or concealment. As the history books go, the famous Norman invasion of Ireland, which saw tens of thousands of men killed in battle, didn't occur until 1169. With no wars underway, the tree man's death must have been one of either local conflict or a personal dispute. Whether he was hidden there by his killer or buried by loved ones as per the religious traditions of the time was impossible to say. But if it wasn't for the freak storm leading to this discovery, it's unlikely the story of this young victim would never have seen the light of day. But this isn't the only secret to have been dredged up by a savage storm. From dinosaurs to battle zones and even entire islands, let's take a look at some other amazing discoveries revealed by extreme weather. Scotland Shetlands. Storms that are whipped up around coastal areas don't just mean trouble at sea, but also trouble on the cliffs. Huge waves and turbulent tides can speed up cliffside erosion as the water destructively collides with the land and slowly breaks down the cliff face. It's a process that's led to coastal communities around the world losing land and homes to the oceans below. But one storm off the coast of the UK revealed an incredible event rather than destroying it. A series of storms that battered Scotland's Shetland Islands in 2012 uncovered a burial site of unknown origin along the coast of Dunrossness, of a human thought to be over 2,000 years old. But in an unfortunate turn of events, a second storm hit the same area a few days later, causing another cliff bank to collapse over the burial site before any real research could get underway. Prior to being completely reburied under several tons of cliff bank, the structure of the site itself was incredibly well preserved. Now though, all that remains to study are the photos. However, had it not been for coastal erosion in the first place, the site would have remained completely hidden indefinitely. I guess the tides of history just keep turning. Beaked whale. Never heard of a beaked whale? Until now, I hadn't either. And that's hardly surprising, seeing as they're one of the least known about mammalian groups on Earth. As they spend much of their day diving to extreme depths and are extremely rare to begin with, they're an incredibly difficult species to study. That was until a huge breakthrough was made thanks to Hurricane Sandy in 2012. The post-tropical cyclone that ended up causing $70 billion in damage to the USA came with a bright side when it blew a large amount of sand away from the New Smyrna beach in Florida. Hidden beneath the dunes was the beautifully preserved skeleton of a rare beaked whale. Measuring 9 feet in length, the giant skeleton is thought to have been buried in the sand for decades. Prior to this, there had only been one recorded instance of a beaked whale washing up on American shores. This game-changing chance discovery has significantly increased our understanding of this elusive species of whale, its habitat distribution, and its curious tusk-like teeth. Now that's what you call a deep secret. Fossils in Hubei. We've all seen fossils of things that are easy to preserve. Bones, shells, and even feathers can be sealed under different sediments of rock for millions of years and are displayed in museums all over the world. But have you ever seen the fossil of a jellyfish? This incredible specimen is one of over 20,000 unique finds from an archaeological dig in China near the Danshui River in Hubei province. While no storm was involved in the fossil's discovery, one certainly played a role in their preservation. The reason you don't see many fossils of organisms made from soft tissue, like jellyfish, is because matter like this tends to rot and decompose much faster than harder substances like bone. Usually, in the incredibly long time it takes for fossilization to occur, any material remains of soft-bodied creatures are long gone. But what appears to have happened in Hubei is that 518 million years ago, when all life on Earth still existed below the waterline, these life forms were quickly buried in sediment due to some kind of storm. The airtight environment of their demise kept their structures mainly intact, and the increasing pressure eventually imprinted their bodies into the sediment, which ultimately hardened into the fossils we see today. And some of the specimens you can even see that the internal organs and even the eyes are all perfectly preserved. I think we all know who won that staring contest. Bronze Age Forest. It seems fairly common for storms to uncover individual findings such as skeletons and fossils, but what about revealing a giant secret thought only to exist in legend? In May 2019, Storm Hannah battered the coast of Wales, leaving havoc in its wake and almost 10,000 residents without power. But while the winds of this storm were strong enough to bring down trees, it also drove huge amounts of sand from the beaches of Borth, revealing a history that had been hidden underneath for centuries. The storm had exposed a prehistoric forest of epic proportions, buried under the water and sand almost 4,500 years ago, and left in the annals of history as mere myth. Unlike most organic matter broken down over time in the sea, the forest was enveloped in a layer of peat. This kept most of the stumps and roots of the trees perfectly preserved, and in some cases entirely fallen trunks. It's not the first time a storm revealed this sunken kingdom so dramatically. A similar storm back in 2014 pulled back the sandy seafloor to expose the legendary forest. But each time the tides bring the sands back in, the stumps are slowly reburied beneath the waves again. So it's only through stormy weather that rare views of this mysterious forest can be sighted. I'd call that a silver lining to the storms if there ever was one. Russia's 5 islands. If you know anything about climate change, you're probably aware that our world's increasingly extreme weather isn't just limited to storms and cyclones. Global warming and climate change are responsible for some of the most extreme weather-related events on Earth, like the melting of glaciers and ice caps. But there's a benefit for countries like Russia, which have large amounts of land trapped under icy Arctic and tundra conditions. As large ice pockets such as the Franz Josef Land Glacier see their rates of ice loss dramatically increase, they're beginning to reveal what lies beneath. During a Russian expedition into the Arctic, 5 brand new islands, as big as 10 football fields each, were discovered. The area used to be dominated by the Nansen Glacier, part of Europe's largest ice cap, which is now rapidly receding. With Russia reportedly warming more than twice as fast as the rest of the world, it's believed that around 30 new islands will be revealed in the coming years. While climate change will undoubtedly wreak havoc for many, one of the few positives is that it will give Russia much more usable land and sea, although the threat of attacks from thought-out ancient monsters will substantially increase. Where's Godzilla when you need him? Dinosaur footprint. When Britain's recent storm Ciara struck for almost 2 weeks in February 2020, it was the country's seaside towns pelted with giant waves and rain that really felt it the most. But a silver lining came out of this storm. a silver lining that was revealed after the storm dragged large portions of sand from the shore of the tiny Isle of Wight. What remained was one huge dinosaur footprint, which experts believe dates back almost 130 million years. Preserved footprints, also known as ichnites, are a kind of trace fossil that give an insight into the world of the dinosaurs. Factors ranging from the number of toes they have to the kind of ground they're found in can reveal a lot about extinct creatures and how they interacted with the world. This one is thought to have come from a neovenator, a carnivorous dinosaur with a bodily structure similar to a T-Rex, but about half the size. Being found in England, I like to imagine this neovenator was on his way for tea and crumpets, wearing a top hat and a monocle. I say, spiffing day for a beachside walk, old chap. World War II bombs. During World War II, parts of England were so heavily bombed that it was a miracle any of their foundations survived. High population targets like London and the connecting counties like Essex were bombed particularly mercilessly. Now, 75 years on, Essex, the county that is now famous for bad reality TV, is still dealing with the wartime fallout. In 2014, a series of vicious storms whipped up the water around the Essex coast, and on the morning of January 5th, 32 World War II bombs were washed up alongside the beaches of Westcliff-on-Sea. They were all later detonated by the Royal Navy, but for 32 bombs to have emerged all at once indicates something potentially sinister. It could have been that several bombs missed their mark back in the day, instead splashing down into the ocean and are now being washed up due to the stormy conditions. Or perhaps an entire downed bomber plane with this explosive payload crashed off the coast, the remains of which are now being released, eventually washing up onto the shore. Another possibility is that they were carried onto the beaches from the tides of the River Thames and have been buried under the sands for over half a century. Either that or someone went to extra efforts to make sure season 20 of The Only Way is Essex never saw the light of day. Do you know of any more mysteries uncovered by extreme weather events? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.